All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you once again, and welcome to Mautic Meetup Lagos. So we are so glad that you joined us. So far we've had about 7 people joined us. We have Kishan, Stephen, Steve, Vishal, Nana, Michael, and Otto. And then we have Aquarat that also joined us. I'm so sorry if I didn't pronounce the names correctly. Frank, you are welcome. Thank you for joining us. So quickly before we go into this main meeting, I'll be sharing a brief about what this is all about, and also be sharing with us what Mautic is for, especially for the benefit of those that might be joining us for the first time. We already have Ruth in the house who is going to be taking today's session, but we'll be introducing her much more later for today's section. Welcome once again. This is Mautic Meetup Lagos, and we started this almost a year ago. Next year we'll make it 1 year that we started this. We have to change to we have to change to using online because it started in almost immediately when the pandemic of COVID-19. So we've been doing this every month, although for the last 2-3 months we've not been able to host any meetup. But from now on, consistently we have a subsequent meetup, and we appreciate if you can be joining us, invite others people. If you're interested in speaking, please feel free to always reach out to me or reach out to Favor or Victor. I'll be sharing more details about how you can reach us, and you can reach us on Slack, and you can also send us a direct message on Twitter. Okay, good. Microphones are off. So if you need to talk, please raise your hand, and you'll be allowed to join this to come up stage, and then you'll be unmuted. Also, if you have any question or would like to know more about something, please use the chat button, the chat section to ask question or any other thing. So we always keep the recordings of our meetup, so you can always check the ones in the past on the YouTube channel for Mautic Meetup Lagos. If you come through our meetup page, meetup.com page, we also share the links to the recording there. So please make sure you join the Mautic Meetup Lagos and our meetup.com page, so that you can be able to get updates from us anytime that we make any announcement. All right, so you might be wondering what is Mautic all about, especially if you are new. So Mautic is simply the first world open source marketing automation platform. So it allows you to be able to handle a lot of things for your automation, especially business-wise. And I'll be sharing more about what it can do. Also, Ruth will be sharing with us much more later about this as it's part of our presentation. But it's either you can have it in 2 ways. You can self-host it by hosting it on your own private servers, or you can decide to use the hosted software as a service by Aqua, which can help you to have personalized and personalized digital experience for your customers throughout their journey. So you may be thinking, how can I be using Mautic? So there are different ways. You can use it to track people on websites. You can use it to create landing pages. You can use it to create web forms. You can use it to do email marketing, A/B testing. You can use it to do dynamic content, which is one of the things I really like about Mautic. You can use it to do contact management and also to segment your audiences. So automated campaign, you can integrate it with SMS, email, you can do focus items. So these are things you can be able to do with Mautic. So Mautic is open source, so it requires the effort of me and you to continue to help it to grow, and also to continue to have more features and more, making it more relevant into this world. So please, if you like to contribute to Mautic, there are different ways you can contribute. So you can contribute through using the following: mautic.org/community/get involved, or you can go to contribute.mautic.org. So there are different departments that you could join. So we have community team, which I'm also part of, being leading the team here in Lagos for Mautic Meetup Lagos. We have the education team, which is led by Favor, and then we have the legal and finance team, I'm part of the marketing team, which I'm the assistant, and then we have the product team. We'll be sharing more details about what is happening in the product and how you can be part of it. So if you'd like to join the Lagos community, please make sure you join us on meetup.com. So our URL is meetup.com/meetup Mautic meetup Lagos. Meetup.com/Mautic meetup Lagos. Then you can please join us on Slack. The Slack room is Nigeria. Please join the Nigeria Slack room on Slack. And please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So search for Mautic Meetup Lagos on YouTube. You can join us on our YouTube channel. And today's session will also be uploaded to the YouTube channel. So you can always rewatch it, ask questions there, come to the group, ask questions, and see how we can be able to be of help and grow together using Mautic. So in case you need help, please feel free to use any of these. The forum is much advisable to use. So go to the forum and always ask your questions in the forum. So why would we ask you to go to the forum? So it's nice to ask on Slack, but our advice, maybe if you don't get answers as soon as possible, you could go to the forum, ask your question there, copy the link, then go to Slack and ask, oh, I asked a question, can someone please help me? Here is the Slack link, and then you can now be able to use that to get more people to respond. Because why we need to do that is because the forum is searchable, so anybody can come to the forum in the future having similar challenge like you, and they may now need to help. So we can be able to go to the forum, look at answers from previous related issues, and also the next thing that you want to go on to do is we want to make sure also that you it's so searchable. So if someone is searching on Google, using search engines also pick up whatever is posted on this forum. So please use the forum, not the Slack. Thank you. Then in case you want to learn more about Mautic, you can go to the knowledge page, kb.mautic.org. You can also use the developers resources, and also AK, and that is the lead for community. He do host a bi-monthly podcast where you can be able to learn about Mautic. So join the community on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And also, if you need a feedback or you need to get to the Lagos team, please join us. Do reach out to us. My name is Oluwatobi. You can reach me via my handle at @topsowo. We have Victor, we have Favor. So this is our social media handle. I will also be sharing this at the end of today's call. All right. So let's go straight before we go. So our next one is going to happen next month. So every last Saturday of the month at 11 a.m. West African time, that is 10 a.m. GMT or UK time. So that is when we do have our meetup. So please feel free to join us. Anticipate for the next one coming up by the end of by April. Yeah, last Saturday in April. All right. So agenda for today. So we've done the welcome and housekeeping. We've also talked about what Mautic is and how you can. So the next thing we'll be going on to talk about is going to be how to use Mautic. After this, we'll be having a networking and breakout session. Then we'll talk about Mautic updates. And then you can also be able to get questions and answers from you. So please prepare your questions and answers. Ruth is here and she'll be able to help you. Then we close for today. All right. So let's welcome Ruth. Ruth is the project lead for Mautic, and she has been in this for so long, and I'm really so glad that she's joining us again for the second time. Last year, she joined us in April, this time in March. She will be talking to us about how to use Mautic, and she will be using real estate case study. Hey, Ruth, welcome.
Oh, thank you. One second while I just share my screen.
Yeah,
and then we can get going. There we go. Super. Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Toby. It doesn't seem like it. Sometimes it doesn't seem like a year ago that we were just kicking off this group, but I think it's awesome that it has just grown and grown over the year.
Yeah.
There's clearly a lot of interest. So
I was so surprised too when I was checking the calendar, trying to fix the date for the next Mautic meeting, and I remember that we started April last year, and it's April now again. I was like, wow, 11 months has just passed away, just like a flash.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the introduction. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Ruth Cheesley. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm based in Ipswich in the UK. which is actually currently extremely sunny today, which is lovely because we've had a lot of rain recently. So, and I'm going to be talking a bit about how to use Mautic with the context of a real estate setting. So I'm not a real estate agent, but what I'm going to be sharing is some ways that you might think about using Mautic if you ever come up with a client who's in real estate or who's a lettings agent or anything like that. So we'll be coming at this from the focus of how we can use Mautic in that context. So a little bit of background about me. So I work full-time for Acquia as the project lead. I have quite a long background in open source. I used to be involved in the Joomla community, and Kubuntu is my operating system of choice. And obviously I've been involved with Mautic since the very early days. And I previously used to run a full-service digital agency, which specialized in Joomla and Mautic integrated solutions. So I did that for about 7 years. And a bit about Mautic. So it started life in 2014, and you'll find us on mautic.org. That's our home. And the company who created Mautic as an open source product also created a software as a service tool, which was on mautic.com. You'll now find that on the acquia.com website called Acquia Campaign Studio. So they acquired Mautic back in 2019, and that's now been rolled into the Acquia products. So actually, you've stolen my thunder a bit, Toby, because I was going to talk about what Mautic is, but I'll shoot over these. The only thing I would say on this is that Acquia is not the only provider of software as a service Mautic. So there are other providers that you can go to. We're shortly going to be rolling out a partners page on the website, which allows us to highlight people who provide services for Mautic, who financially sponsor the project, who also actively contribute to the project in terms of time and resources. So those are the two qualifying requirements. So soon you'll be able to go to the website and actually see the partners who are actively supporting the community, and then you can go to them if you need help for support. So yeah, Mautic and real estate, from my perspective, I think it's a really powerful combination. Because ultimately, in the real estate process or property purchasing, what you call it, wherever you are, you're going through a lead funnel process. And Mautic does that really well. Mautic helps you to automate all kinds of parts of that process. And because of the fact that it's open source and it's expandable, you can also go into it in more detail for your own bespoke requirements. So for example, if you have the need to integrate with a particular piece of software that you're using or expand it in ways that are unique to you, you can actually do that. You could hire a developer, or you could get your developers in-house to work on something to really tailor it down to your own solution. So when we talk about lead funnels, we're going to start with the top of the funnel, middle and bottom. Some of you may well know this already, so if you do, then just bear with me. So when we're talking about the top of the funnel, we're talking about raising awareness and getting people interested in what we have available. So in the real estate section, we're talking about raising awareness of properties and encouraging people to actually visit and engage with your property listings. So that's probably going to be primarily on your website, but you may also create landing pages if you've got particular properties like high worth properties that you're running an open house for example, in times of non-COVID, when you can actually go to places and look around people's houses. You may create a specific landing page, for example, to get people to sign up, either to do an in-person or nowadays a virtual tour of a property, and you could then promote that on social media, for example. So we're not only thinking about organic, we're also thinking about how we can use Mautic to support paid channels and other things like adverts in newspaper, if people still read the newspapers. And then when we come down to the middle of the funnel, when we're talking about real estate, this is where we're looking at actually converting them from someone who might be interested to someone who proactively express an interest and submits their details. So they're interested in coming to look around the property. And that's when you start to qualify them. Well, are they actually going to be a real lead? Are they going to be able to actually buy the property? Or if selling a property, is this a property that I want to take on to sell? Like, is it the kind of thing that we think we will be able to sell? So in this stage, you're kind of like figuring out what their interests are. You're figuring out whether they meet the requirements for you to work with them. And then when we get to the bottom of the funnel, so the bottom of the funnel is the point we're aiming for. So it's like the success part. So this is where you've closed the deal and either you've sold their house or someone has bought a house that you're selling. So ultimately our aim is to get people to the bottom of the funnel, to move them from the top down to the bottom of the funnel. And in real estate, I've just come up with some ideas for how you can actually work with Mautic in those contexts and how it's going to help you in your business, how it's going to help you automate some of your processes. Before I start with this, the most important thing you should bear in mind with Mautic is you can't automate your way out of a bad strategy. So you can't just throw automation in and expect it to fix everything, because 9 times out of 10, it won't. So before you go down this journey, it is important that you're very clear on, well, what do our top of the funnel people look like? What do we want to offer them? How are we going to nurture them down through to the middle of the funnel? And then in the middle of the funnel, what do those people look like? What's the behavior? What are our aims here? And how are we going to get them to move further down? And then at the bottom of the funnel, well, it's not the end of it. So once you buy a house, there's also stuff that you could do afterwards to really delight your customer. You don't want them to just fall out of the funnel and say, thank God for that, I'm never using that company again. Because although they may not buy a house from you again, they've got lots of friends. And if their process was really positive, they're going to tell their friends. So the closing part and the bottom of the funnel is actually really important for retention, but also for driving more people to come and be your customers. And that's a really efficient way of getting new leads, is by having people you've already worked with sell you. So don't neglect the end of the funnel. Don't neglect the bottom. So start at the top of the funnel, where we're looking at awareness and interest. Some of the ways Mautic can help you in this stage. First of all, you can do an awful lot with anonymous contacts. Before you even know who they are, you can do a lot with anonymous contacts. There was a talk at Mauticon which talked about this. I think it might have been like a 5-minute lightning talk, but it'll be on the YouTube channel. So you can go and have a look at that and get some ideas from that. But you can do things like once they've accepted tracking cookie, because obviously nowadays with GDPR, you can't set these kind of cookies without their consent. But once they've accepted that cookie, you're tracking what they're doing on your website or your app or whatever it is that you're tracking. So for example, you know the kind of areas geographically that they're looking at. And you could segment that based on, it depends on, in some ways, how your website's built. But if you have like, say, /Suffolk / and then the property, then anything they're browsing with /Suffolk in the URL or somewhere in the string, you know that's a Suffolk-based property, so it's in this region. And you could start segmenting people based on information like that. You can also segment them based on the value of the properties that they're looking at if you push that information onto the tracking cookie. So you probably are going to show different information to people who are looking at properties that are like $500,000 to people who are looking at properties that are $100,000. And they're probably worth putting a little bit more work into if they're looking at the high-end properties as well. So all of that kind of information is coming into Mautic if you choose to listen to it and do something with it. Obviously, this would involve working with your web development team as well, because that information may not come straight away into Mautic. You may need to figure out a way to make that happen. But once you've done that, you can then make segments based on that kind of behavior, and you can push information out to them. And I'll talk a bit in it about how you can do that. But for example, you could show different dynamic content to people who've been looking at buying properties, to those who've been looking at your pages that are focused on selling properties. So, and if there's people who are looking at doing both, you could push particular dynamic content to those people as well. You could also do that with like modal bars or pop-ups or all that kind of stuff. And this is still before we know them. So what we're aiming to do is to encourage those people to really engage with those property listings. And ultimately, we're aiming to capture their lead information, because at that point, they go from an anonymous person to an actual physical email address that we can liaise with and we can be in contact with. We can also use that information based on their browsing history when they do contact us to assign them to the right person. So you may have people who cover specific regions or who cover specific properties. Based on what they're interested in, based on the properties they inquire in, you could send them to the right person to follow up. So those are just a few ideas. If you have a high value property, quite often you would create a landing page. You might have an you might have an open house, or you might just be capturing leads from people who are interested in, I don't know, flats in a new apartment or some apartment block or something like that. In that case, you can build a landing page within Mautic. This screenshot is just taken from a standard landing page template on ThemeForest, but you can build your own. And here we would probably drive them to this from a campaign like a Facebook or an Instagram or a social media campaign. They go to this page to fill in their details in order to get more information about what's available to them. And then you can start off various workflows. Yeah, so landing pages are a really great way of doing that. And because landing pages are so easy to clone and also to A/B test, you can really quickly create one that's tightly tailored for every single ad set that you create if you're doing paid advertising. So that reduces your cost per click. It makes it more relevant to the search query, and that then means that you're more likely to convert people. If you have any questions, you can use the questions tab and pop them in there, and then people can vote on them. We'll come to those at the end. The other way, if you're not doing full landing pages, is actually to have your inquiry forms on the properties be Mautic forms or push into Mautic when you submit them. So there are lots of plugins for WordPress and other tools, for example, Typo3, that when you fill in the form, the information automatically comes across into Mautic, or you could just copy and paste the code in Mautic and put it in there. So here you can see we're asking for name, phone, email. This is actually from one of my local estate agents. When they want to view the property, so a date and a time, and then a checkbox if they want to request a virtual viewing, and a checkbox say I've got a property to sell. So at that point, you could also kick off a sales process for the team to contact them and reach out about the property they have to sell. And you've got the good old GDPR consent box there as well. We have focus items. So focus items, I say kind of use with caution. It really annoys me personally when I get pop-ups in my face all the time, but you don't have to use pop-ups. You can use a modal bar that appears at the top or the bottom of the page, and you can also choose to have them slide out from the side rather than pop up right in your face as a full-on splash screen. But they can be a good opportunity to reach out to people at that point when they're interested in something. So maybe they've come back to the page for the third time and they haven't made an inquiry. At that point, it might be good to say, hey, how about booking a viewing or something like that? And I talked about, like, you know, a lot of information about them as a non-identified visitor. Doesn't mean you have to be creepy. So you don't want to say, hey, I visited this property 3 times already. Why not make an inquiry? So just be mindful about the way it comes across, because although people know that you're tracking them, it's not always great to have that thrown in your face of like, hey, we're spying on you. So yeah, use it sensibly. And then here's just a campaign that I put together in Campaign Builder. So someone fills in that property inquiry form. We might send them an initial welcome email, for example. And then in the Campaign Builder for Mautic, you can then do things like, if they open that email, add more points because they're engaged and they're interested because they've opened the email. And then the book to call step is based on them landing on a conversion page from, say, a calendar booking tool or something like that. So if you know what that conversion page looks like, you can say if they land here, they've landed there because they've booked a call with an agent. So then we change their status or their stage even to a warm lead. If they don't book a call, with 3 days, send them a follow-up email just to say, hey, are you still interested in this property? We'd love to hear from you. Here's the link to book a call. So hopefully then they will go back into the process. If they don't open the email that you send, then you can send up a follow-up email within 3 days. And I've also got some things where I'm segmenting them based on where they are, where the property is. So if the property that they're interested in is in Suffolk, we'll add a tag and we'll assign it to the Suffolk office. That's changing the contact owner to the Suffolk office. Or you could change it to an individual person if there's a person that you know that's managing a particular region or particular properties. Same thing with the Norfolk office, so just a different region, just so you can add tags. And based on the tags, you can segment people. So you could say interested in Suffolk or interested in Norfolk properties. And then on the final one, this is based on the custom field form, which is, do you have a property to sell? If they've checked yes, we alert the sales team. So we send the sales team a message with their details so they can follow up. We drop them into another nurturing campaign. So this, in my mind, would be like a campaign that's something like, why should buy with us? So it's like convincing people why they should buy with your company. We also push some dynamic content to the website. So this is where I was saying you can change the content on the website because you know that they're interested in buying with you, but they're also interested in selling because they came through an inquiry form on a property to buy, but they've checked the box to say they're also interested in selling. So you could put some copy around like why it's good to have everything in the same boat, like have the same company doing your purchase and sale, stuff like that. And also adding a tag so that we can filter in a segment like all sellers in the last 12 months from this region, for example. If they don't have that selected, we push just the buying with us dynamic web content because we don't need to push the selling stuff because we know they don't have a property to sell, and we add the buying tag. And then in the middle of the screen, you can see some of the segments that we might look to do. So browsing Norfolk and Suffolk properties, that was what I was talking about. If you know that you've got something in the URL, for example, that shows that they're browsing properties in that region, you can segment automatically the anonymous visitors into those segments and then push information. New leads would be new people who've come through the inquiry process. Has property to sell, that would be if they're in that tag, like the seller tag, they would go into that segment. And the high worth customer would be people who are browsing really expensive properties that you may want to push towards a different team, for example. Okay. So then when we get to the middle of the funnel, this is where we're trying to convert them effectively. We're trying to move them down towards buying or selling that property with us. The aim here is they become a known contact. And what we're doing here is we're making sure that we tightly tailor the communication and information we're sending to the interest of the customer. So we only send the relevant properties. And also we can use points to prioritize the contacts. So why is it important to only send relevant properties? When you're searching for a house, any of you who've done this, it's pretty soul destroying. The more helpful you can be as an agent, if you really want them to buy with you, the more likely they are to consider you. And if you're bringing them stuff that's relevant to them, it makes that job a bit easier for them. So we can do this with like a crawl, walk, run approach. You don't have to go straight into doing full integration, all of your tools and everything like that. You can start by just sending them a weekly email of the properties that match their requirements. So they may be you can ask them to fill in a form. What are the price ranges you're looking at? What are the regions that you're looking at? And then you can send information relevant to those things. And initially to start with, you might just literally be pasting in the information to an email, and that email then goes out to all of those contacts that it's relevant to. The walk step, you can start to use dynamic content within the email. So you can say if they have this setting in their profile, send this, and if they don't, then send this. So that's a feature of Mautic out of the box. You may then want to get a little bit more complex in the kind of further up processes of automating, and do things like if they're in this segment or if they have this tag, then send this information in this block. So this is one single email, but if they're not in that, then send this. And if they're in the other ones, then send this. And there's a third-party plugin that you can use to do that, which lets you put Twig in your email templates. So Twig allows you to do really funky stuff like this, of saying if they're in these segments or tags and stuff. And then the run stage from like going up from that would be if you have a website, like a property website or a tool or something like that, actually pulling in the content dynamically from that rather than having to put the information into the Twig templates once a week or whatever. So that would need to do some custom work with a developer, but you could extend existing plugins in order to do things like that. And another thing to mention is that it doesn't all have to be about the property buying process. It could be that they're looking at taking out a mortgage and you have a team of people who work with mortgage brokers. If they're going through this process, it's often long, it's often arduous, and you often are left wondering for weeks what the heck is happening. So this is also an opportunity to use automation to improve the customer journey. And this was actually an example that was used in Inbox Expo, a conference that we were at last week, of telling people where they're at in the loan process and telling them what's happening and what the next steps are, so that they don't just feel like they filled in like 55-page form and they have no idea what's happening next. At every step along the way, they're being told, this is where you're at, and this is what's happening. And we're using media, so we're using video to make it much more approachable to them. You can maybe even have a talking head from the person who's dealing with them if they've got like a named account manager or something like that, explaining what the next steps are, explaining what they need to be prepared for. And then when they do actually get out the other end, it's relief when you're going through this process. So you can also celebrate with them and say, woohoo, this is amazing. You can use this as a way of reinforcing your brand. You can use this as a way of delighting your customers as well. So then the aim of that section is to move them more towards the funnel, towards the bottom of the funnel, where they are a closed transaction. So that would be they've sold the house or they've bought a house. And as they move through that process, they're basically finding their requirements, going to visit things. All of these can be logged in their profile. And because Mautic can integrate with lots of customer relationship management tools, we can also push that information out into, say, Pipedrive or a CRM or something like that. And your sales team can use the CRM to manage and go through that process. But the information can then be coming back into Mautic in order to inform the communications that are going out. So you can do simple things in this stage, like usually there's a whole bunch of documents you have to fill in and sign when you're going through these processes of buying or selling a house. So there's no reason why you can't, when the customer gets to that point, if they are standardized forms or they're online forms that they just go, and the link is the same, but they just go and fill in their details. There's no reason why you can't use Mautic to do this. So you can drop them into a segment that says they're ready for legal documents or whatever you want to call it. And then that automatically sends them out an email to say, yippee, we're at the stage, we're final hurdle, we're nearly there. We just need you to fill in these forms. So it could be a downloadable pack of assets, in which case you could use the assets functionality in Mautic, and you can track when they download that. So you send the link to the asset in the email. When they download it, you add a tag. If they don't, you probably want your contact owner, so the account manager or whoever's looking after this process, to know fairly promptly, because you don't want this to go on for a while. So you can also set it to say if they haven't downloaded that resource in a day, contact the person who's responsible for this process and ask them to follow up. Because it might be that they haven't got the email or they haven't had the time or they need some help downloading it. Whatever, if you're able to proactively help them and nurture them through this process, it feels much more like a partnership rather than just leaving them to get on with it and not knowing what's actually happening for them. Okay, and so then finally, when we get to this process and we're closing out the sale, that bottom of the funnel that I was talking about is a really important opportunity to not just be like, oh, thank goodness for that, move on to the next one, but actually really make sure that everything is okay for the customer. Really make sure that you're taking into account the amount of work it's taken to get to this place, and celebrating that they've either bought or sold or both a house, which is a huge thing to do. So you can also use this opportunity to really celebrate with your customer. You can send them an email to say, congratulations, we made it, we did it, you've bought, sold, whatever, your property. You can even automate sending something in the post. So Leuchtfeuer Digital Marketing created a plugin to integrate with Deutschpost, which allows you to send information out into their tool that allows them to print off a card based on your specifics and post it to an address. And you know the address, they've just bought a property with you or they've just sold. So you will have their contact details. You can even do that personally. You could even just send a personal card if you prefer. You can send them an email with useful information for when they move in. You probably know the information that they need when they're moving into a new property or when they've just sold a new property. If they've just sold and maybe they're looking at buying, you can also have the option to upsell and say, hey, we also do purchases and rentals. But information like where they can find out when the bins are being collected, or where they can find out about how to sort out their council tax, or some information about checking broadband suppliers in the area. Just small things like that show that you care. They show that you understand that moving into a new place can be a bit daunting. If you give them something like a simple checklist they can follow, or some simple tools where they can get tasks like changing your address in all those places that you have to change your address using an online tool, it really does improve the experience for those people. And you could even, thinking a bit more creatively, integrate with some other provider that would send them a little care package. So when I bought my house 10 odd years ago, our estate agents put together a little plastic crate that had stuff that you never have that's always at the bottom of the box, you know, like toilet roll, plastic knives and forks and plates, mugs, napkins, all kind of things that are little things that you need on that when you first walk through the door, and a couple of bottles of wine. You could automate that process. If you find a provider who can make a swag box like that, you could send them a webhook to say, sale complete, please send the person this on that date. And then finally, if the experience has been positive, or even if it hasn't, it's an opportunity for you to ask them, how did you find it? How can we improve? What do you think? Would you be willing to give us a testimonial that we can use? So it's an opportunity to take a test of the waters, if you like, to pick up if there have been problems, learn from them and improve. But also if it's been a really positive experience, you can get feedback from the customer on that. That's great morale boosting stuff for your team. It's a great opportunity for your sales and marketing people to have content regularly coming in that they can use in their campaigns and promotional material. You can even ask them, if they've really appreciated your service, to go and review you on places like Facebook or Google or Trustpilot or whatever tools you use. So don't neglect the follow-up, don't neglect the follow-through. Okay, so that's all I've got for now. I know there's been a few questions in the questions tab, so I'll hop over there. Question from Vishal: is it possible to create landing pages using WordPress or other CSS and use it as a Mautic landing page? Yes, so you can create a page in WordPress using Elementor or whatever tool you use. And then you can either embed a Mautic form within that. So like you can copy the HTML code, or you can use the WordPress shortcode if you're using the WordPress plugin to add a form in there. So that's one way of doing it. You can also, if you use your existing form provider, many of them will have integrations to Mautic, or the ability for you to actually push the information from your form into Mautic. Yeah, so those are the two ways that you can build landing pages in a content management system. And like, I know some people are doing really cool stuff with fabric forms in Joomla, pushing across to Mautic. Certainly, I think WP Forms, Thrive Leads, they all have integrations to Mautic as well. So, yep, that's that one. When sending, and so this one's from Arthur, when sending an email with a link with tracking enabled, I can see that links are clicked, but often the parameters are cut off. So I can't see who clicked that link. How can I fix that? So I would say, I don't know whether you're meaning that the parameters are cut off in the UI. So in Mautic, you can't actually see it's there, but you can't see it. Or if you mean that the parameters are being cut off in the database. If it's in the database, then that might mean your links are too long for the field. And I vaguely recall seeing someone suggesting that we change that and make that field longer. So maybe you could clarify that one for me, Arthur, and I might be able to respond to that. Yeah, because I'm not so sure. So how do you track if the person did not book a call Calendly, for example? So in Calendly, or You Can Book Me, or any of them, generally speaking, you can redirect them to a page after they fill in the form. So that's how I have always done, have they booked a call or not, is that anyone who books a call through my event booking platform, and they land on a particular page on my website. So I know that when they land on that page, they've come through booking. So the important things to think about: keep that page no index. You don't want that page getting in Google, and you don't want that page to be accessible from anywhere else except for coming from that process, that conversion process. And usually that would be like just a simple thank you page. Thanks for booking a call. We'll meet on Zoom. Here's some information on how to download Zoom. Looking forward to seeing you. If you have any questions, here's my phone number in the meantime. So yeah, that would be my suggestion for that. Okay, to create a newsletter, is it so this one's from Carlos. To create a newsletter, is it better to use a campaign and append emails so you can also track who is not opening the emails, or send them one by one? You can, good question. For sanity, I would probably have, so do you mean if this is, I'm guessing you mean if this is like a monthly email that you're sending out? Am I right? You should be able to track who is opening and not opening the emails anyway. So I would say, I'm not sure is the answer for that one. I'm not sure I fully understand the question. Sorry, Carlos. I will, if you want to chat me a bit more of an explanation, I might be able to explain it a bit more coherently. Vincenzo, what do you think about this plugin, Mautic WooCommerce integration? I see lots of people using the WooCommerce integration and using it very successfully. And the folks are very engaged with the community, do some really great talks at Mauticon. So have a look at the YouTube channel to find those talks that they did at Mauticon. If you're using WooCommerce, then definitely one to consider. Yes, makewebbetter.com. Yeah. So yeah, I can't have favorites, obviously, as project lead, but that is one that I do see people talking quite a lot about. And when I watch presentations at Mauticon, they were really good presentations. Everything behind the question mark is missing in the URL that is visited, the tracking URL. These are parameters that should be connected. If you're using, Arthur, if you're using tokens or anything like that in your URLs, or if you're using WooCommerce, which was talked about just a minute ago, there were some problems with that where it wasn't tracking the URLs. Also, it depends what version of Mautic you're using, because I know there were some fixes to UM tags, for example, in a recent release. So I would also have a look at that. If you are still stuck, what I would suggest is making a post on the forums, explain, like give the version of Mautic you're using, PHP database like that, explain what you're doing, giving screenshots and examples if you can, explain what the problem is, and then people might be able to help you diagnose and debug that. And if it is found to be a bug with Mautic, we'll raise an issue on GitHub to look at that. So, okay. Using Mautic JavaScript, is it possible to track Mautic contact through different pages? Vishal. So I'm not sure what you mean by using Mautic JavaScript. If you put the Mautic tracking code on the website, and it's obviously you have to have the consent to do this. So the way it should work is that you drop the essential cookies and they're regardless. So those are the ones that are required to make the forms work. And the tracking cookie is by consent. When the tracking cookie is put on the website, anywhere that that code is showing, it will be pushing information back into Mautic. So yeah, you can track the contacts through different pages of the website. You can run reports based on who is accessing certain resources. So if you know that all of your Suffolk properties are under /Suffolk, you could run a report each week to see how many people are hitting those pages, for example. Okay. Just check the Slack to see the message to see if there's any other. You can retarget from Mautic. Yes, you can retarget from within Mautic and send pop-ups and focus items and things. One of the things that I would love to see is a tighter integration with things like the retargeting lists in Facebook, because that would be really powerful. At the moment, it's a bit of a manual process if you were doing that. So just looking through. Can you explain about how to use Mautic compliant GDPR, user consent, etc.? Make that a whole talk or maybe a whole afternoon in itself. The way that generally you would be recommended to do it is you drop the essential cookies, that's a bit what I was saying, and then the cookies that relate to tracking marketing stuff, they are only dropped if you consent, because you actually need a couple of the cookies in order to do your forms, for example, so they would be considered essential. But tracking is not essential, so that one would need to be picked up by your cookie management process and only set if someone consents to that. Michael, can I use Mautic to start specific remarketing, retargeting campaigns on Google Ads or Facebook Ads? Would that not be amazing? 5 years ago, I was like, this would be an amazing feature for Mautic. It's quite complicated to create, but I do feel like it would be great to have that kind of integration where you could synchronize your lists. So at the moment, no, potentially make a list of contacts from Mautic and you can export those contacts. So yeah. We shall actually plan to use it for tracking registered versus non-registered users using Mautic scoring. Okay, yes, cool. I think also you could do something like adding a tag if they're registered. You know, yeah, you could do stuff like that. One more question. How do I, for example, say who haven't opened 3 segment emails, add an active tag? Yeah, so if they haven't opened 3 segment emails, I'd have to think about that. But the way that you would do it normally is you'd have a campaign and you'd say if they have not opened this email or if they haven't engaged with you for a period of time, then you would remove them from the campaign. Segment-based emails, I'm not sure actually. I would need to do a bit of digging. So this is the downside of being project lead. I'm not actually having my head in Mautic all the time using it now. I would probably ask that question on the forums to get like some best case scenarios. And what I would say is if you have a question like that that you think others might be interested in knowing, it's a good topic to write up for the knowledge base. Yeah, so the knowledge base is designed to be like, how do I do X with Mautic? Or how do I do this thing best practice? So that kind of question would fit really well there. So sorry, I don't know exactly the details of how to do that, but you can do it. You should be able to do it. So okay, I think we're almost there. I think that's all the questions answered. In case anyone else has any questions, feel free to reach out to me on social media or on email if you have any questions, or Slack. I'm always happy to help out. And yeah, if you're interested in helping us with Mautic 4, please do come and join us in the Mautic-4 channel. We'll be working through issues, testing stuff, doing some documentation as well. So we would really appreciate it. We particularly need marketers and users of Mautic in the beta phase. So the beta sprint is when we really need people who use Mautic to come and test and break stuff. Slack is mautic.org/Slack. And the webinar will be on YouTube as soon as Toby's made some magic happen, I expect. That's cool. We like people who poke things and break things. And actually, new people are really helpful because new people don't have the preconceived, I know how to do this. So it also helps us to improve things because we don't have that bias. Vincenzo, can you advise basic aspects take into consideration for using Mautic, WordPress, and a CRM? Integrate all the things, basically. So if you're using WordPress, make sure that you're using Mautic forms. So either use the WordPress connector to bring in your Mautic forms and use a CRM, integrate it with Mautic, HubSpot, Salesforce, Zoho, Pipedrive, BeeTiger, Sugar, they all integrate with Mautic. Great. All good. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen. Over to you, Toby and Favor. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Ruth. That was really a very nice session, and thanks for taking the time to answer most of the questions, not most, all the questions that were asked. It was really a very nice one. Thanks to everybody who joined us today. So just for like 15 minutes before we go on to share updates about what is happening in Mautic, I will want us to just have a kind of okay, we can do that after this so that we don't waste too much of our time. So we have a lounge where you can be able to interact with other people. So let's just quickly finish up with today. So let me quickly share with us some announcement that some of us might not know about. So the update is that Multicon video for 2020 are available on YouTube. So please feel free to go watch. They are very interesting sessions that you'll be learning from. And Mautic Global Conference. So this year the conference is being renamed to Mautic Global Conference. So Mautic Conference actually. So not Multicon as at last year. So it's now Mautic Conference. So we'll be having June 16 and 17. So if you're interested to talk at the conference, please feel free to submit your. There's a call for presentation. So please feel free to fill it. Just go to the website multicon.mautic.org. You'll be able to learn more about it. You'll also be able to get more information when the registration is open. So Mautic 4.0 is here, and the schedule is as follows. So I so much appreciate Ruth for taking this up because she has to jump between the sprint for Mautic 4.0 coming back to come and talk to us at this at the meetup here today, and then immediately she's done here, she's going back to join the sprint so that everything can be put together for release by May. So the schedule is please, you can still join. It's still on for today and tomorrow for the Mautic 4 Alpha sprint. So the beta sprint is going to be 23 to 25. Then the candidate release is going to be 14th to 16th of May. Then the general availability is 21st to 23rd of May. Then Mautic 4 release is expected to be May 24. So we've already have a question and answer. So once again, join us on YouTube by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search for Mautic Meetup Lagos and subscribe. Please, this video will also be available on YouTube anytime from now. So if you're on our meetup.com page, if you are part of the page, you'll be able to get the notification when it is available, and then you can rewatch this session. You can also share it. Also, please join us on Slack Nigeria. That is our channel on Slack, Mautic Slack. So join us with the Nigeria, where you can be able to interact with us and more. All right, so we have myself, Victor, and Favor bringing this together for everybody. So please feel free to reach any of us. If you'd like to speak in any of our future meetups, so please feel free to reach out. We'd love to have you speak and have you share your knowledge with us. So we see you again next month, April 24, 11 a.m. West African time, 10 a.m. UK time. We will be glad to have you join us. Thank you. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend, and bye.